Hi, so welcome into this episode of African Spirituality, and I've got a lot of questions that I think are linked to Ashura Star Goddess Conspiracy Monday series. So I will link the video below in case you haven't seen that video. In case you're not subscribed to her, you should definitely go and check her out. She has a lot of different perspective and she touches on a lot of different things. It's just something to add into your library of different perceptions, because she touches on a lot of different subjects and she provides a perspective that's different from what's out there already. So go check that out. Maybe pause this video, go check her video, and then come back so you can get somewhat of a background on what I'm going to be talking about, but from an African perspective. So the question was, what are my takes based on my tradition about interdimensions and extraterrestrial life and all these different things? So even though for the mundane, mainstream, or Western civilization, this is something that's put out there as new, people are seeing UFOs, taking pictures or different things like that, and for them it's kind of like, you know, some people saying that they've been abducted and all these different things. But from an African perspective, interdimensional travel is nothing new, is nothing to go nuts about, unless you're still in the mundane stream and just awakening to all of this stuff that may be, you know, shocking to you to find out all these people are having all these experiences. But from a spiritual point of view, and from the African tradition, my tradition, and all of the tradition that I've met and I've gone through, there is this aspect about different dimensions. First of all, what I need to stand as a ground is that unlike the Western view of things where they're saying, you know, there are ghosts, and sometimes in certain places you can feel ghosts and other energies, or that they have Halloween, and on Halloween it has the veil is a thing and you can do all kind of spiritual things and talk to spirits during a Halloween and everything. We don't have that kind of a perspective, okay? There is no Halloween in African perspective. In African perspective, the world of the visible and the world of the invisible and other interdimension are already right here in one space. So we're sharing a space in terms of time, geography, and so on. So we're sharing that space with other beings, other entities that sometimes we can or cannot see. But this is on a constant basis. There is no thing for us, there's nothing as the veil being thin or not. Spirits are there all the time. Whether you turn the lights on, you turn it off, whether you go under the sea, you go on the mountain, the highest mountain you can find, or you go wherever you want to go on this planet or outside of this planet, there are other beings that are there, and they are there regardless of your own particular perception. They are there regardless of your own particular belief. Whether you believe in them or not is not going to change the fact that they are there. And for us, we are being brought up knowing that we live in the world that's mixed with what we can see and what we cannot see. And that, you know, knowing that spirits are all around us is something that's just, you know, normal. It's not something that you need to be a witch in order to do, or to need to have any type of power, develop any type of psychic sensitivities. It's just something that everyone in the culture is being taught, that whether you believe in that or not, spirits are there all of the time. Whether you can sense them, even sense them better, even though you are not, all of your powers are not awakened. And that people would talk about, this is where people would talk about ghosts and things like that. But those spirits are there all of the time. The same way you can go to a place and feel that there's some entities there, and someone else would be there, will not even feel it at all. It's just because you're not at the same state of vibration. You're not resonating, you're not being able to perceive those other beings that are here all of the time. No matter what religion, no matter what system of beliefs, they are everywhere, some type of information telling you that there are other beings that you cannot see, other entities that you cannot see with your own two eyes. You can see them with your other senses, with your third eye, whatever, but they are there all the time. So this is the number one thing to note, is that we don't separate the spirit world from the normal mundane world. It's just one world where we all mix up together, and we are here on different layers, on a different dimension, sharing the same space in time and geography or what have you. Then you have anything that, you know, pertains to seeing extraterrestrial, OVNIs, object, unidentified objects, all these different things. It's really popular now since the 50s, the 70s, or what have you, but it's been around all the time. Indigenous people have witnessed OVNIs and things like that, unidentified objects. So it's nothing new. This is like, you know, from the dawn of time, there have been beings that have been going from one dimension from one dimension to another, or from a different solar system to another. And I think this pertains to some people don't believe that they are a multiverse. They just believe that, you know, it's just the Earth and the little solar system that we know of, and that the only life in this solar system is here. You know, that's one way. That's, you know, everyone is free to believe whatever they want to believe. But so I'm going to be giving you the African perspective. If you go to, and this is well-known research, you can Google it for yourself, research it for yourself. The Dogon people of Mali have documented throughout their own history of their communication with extraterrestrial beings coming from Nibiru. And this was before people had, you know, all of the NASA technology to be able to see in stars, to be able to see other galaxies and stuff like that. So it is not something new. When you're coming to a well-versed African who's well into his spirituality, or someone who's gone and done the work of researching things like extraterrestrial life, is not going to get them that excited, because it's already something they already knew about it. And there's nothing scary or, you know, crazy about it. They're just going to say, oh, okay, you just find out this for yourself. And so so in terms of that, is that, you know, for the Dogon people, their cosmology is pretty much, you know, straightforward. They say, you know, their ancestors came from the planet Nibiru. From that planet they came into the waters, and out of the waters they came into Earth, where they created them and taught them all the things that they know about how to get along with the environment and strive in that particular environment. They gave them a lot of skills. They taught them a lot of their spirit animals and spirit totems of how to live successfully and symbiotically within their own environment. If you search on YouTube, I'm going to try to see if I can find a link to that documentary, but it's basically people who are, their village is next to a pool of water where crocodiles live there. And the Western journalist who's there, he's saying, you know, isn't it dangerous because you have small kids? You know, maybe the crocodiles can eat the kids and things like that, you know, aren't you scared? And they basically explained to him that they have a relationship with the crocodiles, and the crocodiles have never attacked them. On the contrary, when the water is low in that area, the crocodiles are the ones warning them that they may be having issues with water. So they have a really symbiotic relationship with their environment, with the animals that are in their environment. And I think this is what people don't get. You know, so a lot of people are waiting for some scientific proof, some scientific, you know, demonstration and all of that, while, you know, all of this information was already in their own tradition for them to know, and to that means that they didn't have any doubt, they didn't need any external validation from science, from scientists, or anything like that. And if you really look into that, sometimes you will have science say one thing, and then a couple of years later, oh no, this is not really that. The science has advanced, and now we understand that this is no longer the case of that. Well, when you have those traditional teachings, a lot of the time, in terms of the cosmology and all the things, those are things like they hold true then, which is still true now. So in that sense, I will much more rely on tradition that's been passed on from ages and ages, that have been verified, exemplified from time again, rather than some new scientific findings, which I will have to wait to see, is it going to be confirmed? Is physics quantum going to, you know, later on say that this is not the case, or anything like that? Is there any new theories that are going to put this under the water? And this kind of ties into what people have said about, you know, the Earth being flat. And I'm only going to say one thing about that. Two things, actually. The first one is that when you're talking about people believing that the Earth is flat, you're not talking about the world. You're talking about Western society and Western people. And what's going on in Europe, when some people were saying the Earth is flat and other people were saying no. And at that time, the people who were saying no were being persecuted for having a different perspective. So first of all, it is not the whole world that was thinking that the Earth is flat. It is a specific culture, a specific number of people. And if you do look into the second thing, which is that if you do look into the cosmology of indigenous people, they never thought that the Earth was flat. When the Dogon is talking about and placing you and showing you where Nibiru is, they're talking about planet. They're showing you spheres. They're showing you, just like the sun is a sphere, they were showing you the earth is a sphere, and they're showing you that they drew the a representation of the solar system with all of the planets being spheres. So just for you to have something to think about, like, or when people are saying everybody believed this and now we believe something else, no, they're talking. You need to think about what are they talking about and whose culture, whose references are they pointing at to, because it doesn't include everyone, and that's what you should always think about. Like, are they talking to me? Are they talking about my own tradition, my own perspective, my own spirituality? Because a lot of these indigenous people never believed that the earth was flat, never believed in a lot of the things that are being, a lot of the evolutionary theories that are being put out there, being changed and modified as science evolves. So that's something for you to kind of keep in mind and start thinking about. When people are bringing information to you, you should always take a step back and use your own discernment, use your own intuition in terms of discerning what are these people talking about and does that pertain to you, and so that you can distance yourself from information that is not going to serve you at the end of the day. Okay, in that sense. So when you're talking about interdimensional travel, one of the books that I've mentioned, Malidoma Somé, I've mentioned and I've recommended this book for several reasons, because this African gives you not only sharing his experience, but he has had a wealth of experience, a wealth of knowledge as well. And when I say he's a shaman, he was initiated, he's experimented with the information, experimented with all different type of situations, and some of his book provide us with some of the teaching he was allowed to share with the public at large, which you should definitely read into if you're interested into interdimensional travel. Some of the examples that he gives in his book are, for example, the ability of traveling some other places with your spirit, which is kind of part of, is really another form of astral travel or of dream work, where you are in a dreaming state and you actually leave your body to go other places, whether to other places on earth, on the astral realm, or on other part of this consciousness. The second thing is that he also talks about, when you're talking about the mineral kingdom, the animal kingdom, all the different things, he gives vivid examples of how you can travel to the mineral kingdom, meaning how you can actually enter a rock and live in that microcosm universe, and interact with the beings that are living in there. So an amethyst wouldn't be just an amethyst. It would be, the kingdom of the amethyst in that particular stone, with having beings that are in there and that you can interact with. In his own particular recollection of event, this was done during his initiation time. And the difference that we get from him, and which was, I think, so much important, is that usually initiation in his country and in several African traditions is done when the male child is 6 years old. So sometimes it's hard for people to recall all of the little details because they were so young, and it has taken so much time for them to start discussing those things. But because he was almost an adult when he went through his initiation, he was able to recall a lot more detail, to recall a lot more interaction, and to provide us with a lot more information to grasp ourselves around that. I've had myself also the interaction that I have with crystals and stone. It's not, I think, does not equate quite what I can see on YouTube when people are talking about energies and things like that. They are oftentimes just talking about energies. They're not talking about individuals or actual beings that they're seeing within the stone and things like that. So in that sense, I'm much more closer to what the experiences of Malidoma, even though I haven't myself taken my physical body to enter that kingdom as he has the chance to do. And so I would just recommend to read that book, so just you have a different background, a different perspective. When people are talking about interdimensions, I don't even think they are really, they actually know what they're talking about, because unless you've been there, all of the rest of it is pretty much speculation. And yes, you're talking to people who actually done the work, who actually went there. You're just speculating and just, repeating what other people have said. So I think Malidoma gives you by sharing his experience, he gives you a different take in it because he's speaking from his own personal experience rather than speaking from what he's read, heard, or things like that. And that's particularly with the mineral kingdom, but he's also had experiences going to different dimensions where you're actually seeing other beings that are sharing our physical space, our temporal space as well. And that I have had a couple of experiences with that. And I have to say, when people start asking about interdimensional travel, or when people are saying they rather leave this prison planet and go to a different dimension, I'm often wondering if they do understand the role of this planet, and if they do understand the role of the dimension that we are currently in. And not from a Western New Age point of view where they're talking about the 5th and the 6th dimension and, you know, people ascending higher and higher, you know. I'm really not subscribing to that. I'm subscribing that this realm, this dimension is as is. As people, consciousness changes, we are able to experience different things, but it doesn't make it higher or lower or anything like that, from my point of view. It's not because there are people who are still stuck in second dimension paradigm that it makes this dimension and its entirety lower, or it's not even because you are on a second dimension paradigm that we are lower than the dimension next to us, because it's not based on that kind of logic in better and climbing and things like that, which is pretty much what is has been established in this particular realm, from my understanding. And then the second thing was that I was reading some of the comments and interacting with a couple of people and some of your messages, and I'm not quite sure that you understand what's in these other dimensions, what is in this galaxy and stuff like that. And I'm saying this because I've seen a lot of people who are still fearful of things that are in this dimension. So my question is, if you're still fearful of things that are in this dimension, what makes you think that you'll be just doing just fine in the dimension next to it? That's one question. If you are still based in seeing something that is not aesthetically pleasing in your own sense of beauty, what makes you think you're going to go in there and see things that are different from that, or that may be worse, and still be comfortable in all that stuff? These are just questions, because the grass always seems greener elsewhere until you figure it out and you start doing even a little bit research on your own. One thing that has been a commonality among all of this debate about extraterrestrial, about entities, about all these different things, about the watchers and what have you, the quarantine and all that kind of stuff. If you Google and research this, and you'll find tons of videos about all of that, people talking about, discussing all of that. But one commonality is that there's a lot of entities that want to come here, that want to come into our dimension. Entities that are hiding, that want to come up and that want to have these experiences, because no matter where you're looking, this is the plane where you can evolve the fastest. That's just what it is. At least from my perspective, that's what it is. This is the plane where you'll have the most challenges. It is one thing to have all of the superpowers, but when you're stripped of all of those powers and you have to understand the fiat system, you have to undergo racism, you have to undergo all these different things and find your way around and out of the things to master all of that. That's the greater training you can get in order for you to go and experience all of the other dimensions. And when people are saying about, you know, these beings that are watching us, that are more advanced technologically and all these different things, the story is always that they are looking at our evolution and they're looking at how people are navigating throughout that. And if you even research more, you will see that the people who manage to navigate throughout that join them because they have acquired that type of knowledge. So I think it's just a matter of you doing your own research or experimenting with the information that's there, and stopping kind of to be just jumping on whatever bandwagon that's passing by, you know, because first of all, you don't know where the final destination is. It could be dimension number 6 or 7, which you have no idea it's about, and which maybe you wouldn't even be allowed because of your own polluted mind. If you are thinking about escaping escaping, not mastering and ascending, but escaping. There may be beings that don't want you at other places because they are maybe in a state where they're no longer trying to escape anything. They have powers enough, they have grown enough for them to understand their place, and there are dimensions where you won't be able to go because of your mind state, your state of mind, and your state of the knowledge. So yeah, I don't really subscribe to some of the theories that are being thrown out there. I think it's more of a distraction. It's more there to make you feel like you're powerless again. If you are one of those people who think this planet is a prison, or if you think that this is something that you're not going to be able to overcome and all that, I think that to me just show me how much of the programming has been put into you and how much you actually subscribe to that. Because I do think that it is some of this propaganda being pushed on people to make them feel powerless, not to explore their own powers, and not to understand that in this sphere your powers can only grow, your awareness of your powers can only grow, but that's if you wanted to, if you want them to grow, if you want to explore that, because at the end of the day it's all based on free will and what each of us want for our own evolution and developing and for our own experience here. So if you want this experience to be miserable, yes, it's going to be miserable. If you want this experience to be lesson learned and growth, then that's the perspective you're going to take. You decide, and every time you're going to say that this planet is a prison, it's going to feel more and more like a prison to you. To me, I really don't feel it as a prison, because I do know that from our own spiritualities we have the capacity as beings to go to other dimensions and come back, and that you can do that through dream work, you can do that through certain rituals, you can do that from working with certain entities that will take you places, show you things, and so I don't really see this as a prison. And I think, this is maybe a few things for you to think about the next time somebody tells you that you came to this place to be a prisoner of the matrix, the so-called matrix. Just think about what that means in terms of your own experience, and how empowering is that, or how is that going to serve you during the time that you are here. So I hope I answered your questions. If I didn't, just clarify them, and I'll be happy to go a little bit deeper. But I try to stay on the basic levels, because I know some of you are new to this type of information, while others are much more experimented and have explored a lot more. So I try to find a just middle ground where to discuss this, but I do hope that it was helpful. Bye!